Welcome to episode 23 in our series on Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto's The Path of the Just, and we're up to chapter 14, and the title of this chapter is The Elements of Abstinence. So the Ramchal is going to describe three elements of abstinence. Abstinence from pleasures like eating, abstinence when following halakhic matters, and abstinence in your social conduct. So let's begin. The Ramchal begins. Abstinence consists of three major elements: abstinence from pleasures, abstinence in halakhic matters, and abstinence in social conduct. Abstinence from pleasures consists of what we've mentioned in the previous chapter. This means that one should not take anything from the sphere of worldly matters over than what is essential for him, and it includes anything that is pleasurable to the senses, such as food, intimate marital relations, clothing, strolling, auditory sensations, and the like, though excluding pleasure enjoyed on those days when enjoyment is a mitzvah. Abstinence in halakhic matters consists of being continually stringent. One should consider even a minority viewpoint in a dispute if it seems justified, even when the halacha has not been decided in accordance with this viewpoint, provided that this stringency does not lead to any leniency. And one should be stringent when in doubt, even where one could be lenient. So the Ramchal telling us that if we want to fine-tune our minds into being a little bit more careful than average, he advises us to perhaps take a slightly more stringent view than the more lenient, because probably it's better in most cases to develop this kind of discipline of abstinence and perhaps push you to be a little bit more stringent with yourself. And he continues, our sages of blessed memory have already explained in Chulin 37b the statement of Yecheskel, my soul has not been defiled, which means I have not eaten from any animal that required a rabbinic decision, and I have not eaten from the meat of an animal that had to be slaughtered quickly. All of this is definitely permitted by law, yet, nonetheless, he decided to be stringent with himself. So very interesting. If you try to keep kosher by observing kashrut, the laws of kashrut, it's fine for you to be buying from let's say, for example, a kosher butcher, and you assume that you are keeping kosher. But if you want to be slightly more strict with yourself, you have to question whether the shochet is fulfilling his duties correctly. Perhaps it would be, or to limit the amount of meat that you eat means you limit the amount of potential problems that could have occurred in the run-up to you obtaining the meat. This is perhaps what he means here. And he continues, I have already indicated previously that those who practice abstinence must not allow themselves to be guided by what is permissible for the whole of Israel. They must distance themselves from what is repugnant, and from whatever is similar to it, and from whatever is similar to that. So the Ramchal is reminding us of something he mentioned in an earlier chapter, where sometimes Hashem requests more of certain individuals within the Bnei Yisrael to act as examples. So perhaps this is what he means. You must make fences for yourself if you feel like you are kind of a servant of God, and you must take on more restrictions than is really needed. And he's going to describe this by bringing the case of Mar Ukva, who said in Chulin 105a, in this matter, my relationship to my father is like vinegar that derives from wine. If my father has eaten meat today, He would not eat cheese until the next day at the same time. Yet, when I eat meat in this meal, I will refrain from eating cheese only until the next meal. Now certainly his father's conduct was not governed by any halakhic ruling, for otherwise Mar Ukva would surely not have contravened it. Rather, his father was stringent in the way he practiced abstinence. This is the reason why Mar Ukva referred to himself as vinegar that derives from wine, since his abstinence was weaker than his father's. Now the Ramchal is going to describe another type of abstinence, which is abstinence in social conduct. So he continues, abstinence in social conduct consists of solitude and separation from society to free one's heart for the service of the eternal and for proper contemplation regarding it. But this is conditional on his not leaning here as well towards the other extreme. For our sages of blessed memory have already stated in Kesubot 17a, a person's demeanour should always be oriented towards people, as they said in Brachot 63b. A sword upon those who fabricate or make up their own rules, they will be stupefied. That's from Yirmiyahu. And this is referring to a sword upon the enemies of Torah scholars. But this is just a euphemism for the Torah scholars themselves. In other words, they are their own worst enemies if they take on prohibitions that shouldn't really be done. And he continues, regarding these Torah scholars who sit in isolation whilst learning Torah. Rather, one should join the company of good people for as long as may be necessary for his Torah study or for earning a livelihood, and afterwards he should seclude himself in order to cleave to his God and to attain the ways of righteousness and the true service of the eternal. So the Ramchal is reminding us here that it's not a good thing to be completely by yourself and completely isolate yourself. You must go to the base of Midrash, you must go to synagogue, you must be part of the community. But at a point you must say, I will now sit in solitude and contemplate God completely. This includes limiting one's speech, refraining from idle conversation, not gazing beyond one's 4 cubits, and all other such things which relate to matters that become habitual to a person until they become second nature. Although I have set out the rules of the 3 aforementioned elements in concise terms, you can see how they encompass many human actions, and I have already indicated to you that the specifics must be dealt with by one's judgment, so as to keep them in line with the appropriate and truthful standard of abstinence. So the Ramchal, we've just completed the 14th chapter, but he brings 3 elements that you can take a lot of derivations from in many, many situations. So firstly, just to recap, abstinence from worldly pleasures like eating, being a bit more stringent about how much you eat, when you eat, and various other kind of restrictions. Limit yourself in certain ways. Have some control. When you have more control over yourself, you are more likely to be able to reach higher grounds in your metaphysical journey. He talks about abstinence also in halachic matters. If you feel that you want to perhaps take a little bit more responsibility in being a little bit more strict, whereas you could be a little more lenient, it's up to you, but tailor it to your life and make sure you don't go beyond what is necessary or beyond what is effective. Once it becomes beyond effective, it could be detrimental. And also he described the idea of abstinence in social conduct. This doesn't mean that you should be a hermit within your own 4 walls. It means you have to be part of the community, you have to attend the things you have to attend, be responsible to your fellow man and woman, but at some point take time out where you would normally perhaps socialize and perhaps sit in contemplation of God. And that concludes this 14th chapter. And the next episode will be dealing with acquiring abstinence and how this is done.